The rain pounded against the pavement, wild, hard, cold. Thunder roared above New Lagos like the sky was angry with her too. But Celeste Vaughn didn't flinch. She stood there, drenched, shivering, a single duffel bag slung over her right shoulder. Her mother, Eleanor Vaughn, stood at the doorway, arms folded, lips thin, eyes sharp with rage. "You're throwing away everything we built for you," her father, Walter Vaughn, said. His voice was low but harsh, each word slicing through the noise of the storm. Celeste didn't reply right away. She looked at them, the parents who once sang her lullabies, packed her school lunches, and prayed over her exams. They didn't even let her inside to dry off. "I'm not throwing anything away," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Her left hand clutched her stomach, a soft curve forming under her coat. Eleanor's lip curled. "Then prove it. Get rid of it. Go back to law school. Forget this mistake." Celeste flinched, not because of the cold rain pouring down her face, but because the words pierced deeper than frostbite. "I won't," she said, looking her mother dead in the eyes. "I won't kill my baby to please you." The silence was deafening. Walter turned and walked away. The door slammed shut in her face. The wind howled, and Celeste was alone, but only for a second, because from the far end of the street, footsteps echoed on the wet concrete, and a voice called out to her. "Hey, you need a place to stay?" She turned. A man in a black hoodie stood under the street lamp, half his face hidden in shadow. Celeste's breath caught in her throat. Was this help? Or another danger? Celeste hesitated, staring at the figure under the street lamp. He was tall, slim, and the hood of his jacket was pulled low over his face. The rain dripped from the edge of it, and the light above flickered, casting long, strange shadows across the empty street. "You deaf?" he asked, stepping closer. "I said, you need a place to stay or not?" Celeste clutched her bag tighter. Her clothes clung to her skin, soaked through. The wind pressed against her back like a cold hand. Her lips trembled. "I don't know you," she said, her voice shaky but firm. The man chuckled, raising both hands as if to show he meant no harm. "I'm not trying to rob you, girl. You just look like you don't belong out here tonight." She blinked at him, wiping water from her eyes. "Who are you?" He lowered his hood. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, with a tired face and kind eyes. A thin scar ran across his chin, and his nose looked like it had been broken before. But there was something gentle about the way he spoke. "Name's Fola. I've been where you are. Trust me." Celeste hesitated, then looked down the road. The street stretched on in both directions, empty and cold. Her phone had died hours ago. She had no umbrella, no money, no friend willing to open their door. "I just need somewhere dry," she said quietly. "I won't stay long." Fola nodded. "All right then. Follow me. It's not much, but it's better than freezing on the sidewalk." She followed him through back streets and narrow alleys, the city breathing around them like a beast, neon lights blinking in the distance, honking cars, the distant laughter of strangers who had homes to go to. After 15 minutes, they stopped in front of a rusty blue gate. Fola knocked twice, then twice again. A tiny window slid open. A woman's voice spoke from behind the iron. "Who be that?" "It's Fola," he answered. "Got someone who needs a bed for the night." The window shut, and after a few seconds the gate creaked open. Inside was a compound with peeling walls, cracked pavement, and a strong smell of wet cement. A small building stood at the back, 2 floors high, with faded signs that read, "Mama D's Lodge, rooms by the hour, day or month." No nonsense. The woman by the gate wore a wrapper and scarf. Her eyes scanned Celeste from head to toe. "She's pregnant." "She's tired," Fola replied quickly. Mama D narrowed her eyes. "She got money?" Celeste looked away. "She can work it off," Fola said. Mama D sucked her teeth. "1 week. After that she finds her own way." Fola nodded and turned to Celeste. You heard her. They climbed a narrow staircase to the second floor. Room 3 was small and smelled of bleach, but it had a bed, a roof, and a single flickering bulb. Celeste dropped her bag and sat on the bed, too exhausted to cry. Fola lingered at the door. You'll be okay, he said. We all start from somewhere. Then he left, pulling the door shut behind him. Celeste sat alone in the dim room, water dripping from her hair. She stared at the cracked ceiling, her hand resting on her belly. She had no plan, no money, no family, just this baby, and this room. But for the first time in hours she wasn't standing in the rain. Still, as she lay down, she couldn't help but wonder, who exactly was Fola? And why had he really helped her? Celeste woke up to the sound of loud voices downstairs. Her body ached from sleeping on the thin mattress, and her stomach growled from hunger. She sat up slowly, blinking at the pale sunlight creeping through the broken blinds. The room was still dim, the air thick with the scent of bleach and old sweat. She had slept in her wet clothes, too tired to change. Her bag lay beside the bed, untouched. She reached for it, pulled out a clean shirt and leggings, and changed as quickly as her sore muscles allowed. Outside her door, the hallway was quiet. The wooden floor creaked as she stepped out. The walls were painted a faded yellow, cracked and peeling in places. Other doors lined the corridor, some half open, others shut tight. As she made her way down the stairs, the smell of fried beans and onions drifted into her nose. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten in almost a day. Downstairs in the courtyard, Mama D sat on a stool near the gate, stirring a pot over a charcoal stove. She looked up when she saw Celeste. You're awake, she said, her tone flat. Celeste nodded. Yes, Ma. Good morning. Mama D raised an eyebrow. You slept in my lodge, so now you work in my lodge. Celeste blinked, startled. I didn't. No talk too much, Mama D interrupted. There's mop and bucket in the back. Sweep the halls. Wash the toilets. That's how you pay for the room. Celeste swallowed her pride. Yes, Ma. She turned to do as she was told, but Mama D called her back. You eat first, she said, scooping some beans into a metal plate. Hungry girls are weak workers. Celeste's eyes welled with tears. She hadn't expected kindness, not here. Thank you, she whispered. Mama D said nothing more, just waved her off like she didn't care. But as Celeste walked away with the plate, she could feel the woman's eyes watching her. In the back of the lodge, she found the mop, bucket, and a bar of nearly used soap. The toilets were old and dirty, the kind that made you gag when you stepped in. But she scrubbed. She mopped. She cleaned until sweat dripped from her forehead. By noon, her back hurt and her hands were red. As she sat by the tap washing her face, another girl approached her. She was short with braided hair, a loud chewing gum in her mouth and attitude all over her face. You the new girl? She asked, crossing her arms. Celeste nodded. I'm Janet. Room 5. Don't touch my stuff, don't look at my man, and don't think you're better than me. I wasn't. I said what I said. She walked away without waiting for a reply. Celeste sighed. This place wasn't home. It wasn't safe. But it was shelter. And for now that was enough. As she returned to her room later that evening, a knock came on her door. She opened it slowly and saw Fola leaning on the wall, arms crossed, a small paper bag in hand. Got you this, he said, handing it over. Soap, toothbrush, some basics. Celeste hesitated. Why are you helping me? Fola looked at her for a long second. Because someone once helped me, he said simply. And maybe, just maybe, you'll help someone else one day. Then he turned and walked away. Celeste shut the door and looked inside the bag. She smiled. The first real smile since she left her parents' house. Maybe this city wasn't completely heartless. But as she lay down again that night, she felt a flutter in her belly, the baby kicking for the first time. It was weak, gentle, but it was real. Life inside her. Hope inside her. And yet she knew this was only the beginning. Celeste sat on the edge of her bed, hugging her knees. Her body felt like it had aged 10 years overnight. Her arms ached from scrubbing floors, her back screamed with every movement, and her legs throbbed from standing too long. But none of it compared to the sharp cramps that had been twisting through her belly all morning. She pressed her hand against her growing stomach, her fingers trembling. The baby was still moving, but the pain was getting stronger each day. No doctor, no vitamins, no comfort, and no one to talk to. She had seen girls like her on the street, young, pregnant, alone, and she had always wondered how they ended up that way. Now she knew. You fall, and when you hit the ground there's no one waiting to catch you. The lodge was awake now. Downstairs someone was banging on the gate, shouting at Mama D. Music blasted from one of the rooms. The sound of arguing floated through the thin walls. Celeste stepped outside her room. The hallway smelled of fried plantain and kerosene. She walked slowly, one hand on her belly, hoping the pain would pass. At the end of the hall, room 6's door was half open. Inside, a girl lay curled up on the bed, whispering to herself. Her name was Ada. A soft-spoken woman with sunken eyes and a scarf always tied tight around her head. They hadn't spoken before. Celeste lingered in the doorway. Something pulled her in. You okay? She asked softly. Ada looked up, her eyes wide and tired. She gave a small nod, then waved her inside. Celeste stepped in and sat on the edge of the bed. I'm Celeste. Ada, the girl whispered. I know. The room was dark. A single bulb flickered above, barely lighting the space. A calendar from 2021 still hung on the wall. A teddy bear, old and dirty, lay in the corner. I'm hungry, Ada said suddenly. But I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. Celeste understood that kind of hunger, the one that made your head spin and your chest feel hollow. I have 2 crackers in my bag, she said. We can share. Ada's face lit up, not from the food itself, but from the simple act of being seen, being offered something. As they sat there chewing in silence, Ada spoke again. I was like you once, she said. Pregnant. Alone. Kicked out. Celeste turned to her. What happened? I lost it, Ada said quietly. At 7 months. Stress. No food. No help. Celeste froze. Her heart pounded. I came here after. Mama D gave me a room. I stay quiet. Work. Breathe. Celeste could barely swallow. She placed her hand gently on her belly again, as if trying to shield her baby from Ada's story. I won't lose mine, she whispered. Ada smiled faintly, but her eyes held no joy. Only understanding. Only pain. You better fight, she said. No one will fight for you. Just then a voice shouted from downstairs. New girl. Celeste. Come help with water. It was Mama D. Celeste stood, her legs weak. Ada touched her wrist before she left. You're not the only one hiding here, she said. We all came from something bad. Just don't let it break you. Celeste nodded and walked away. But as she carried a heavy bucket down the stairs that day, her back aching and heart pounding, she couldn't stop thinking about what Ada had said. This city, this place was full of women like her. Lost. Hiding. Fighting. And somehow still alive. But for how long? That night, the wind howled louder than usual. Celeste couldn't sleep. She sat by the dusty window of room 3, staring out at the broken street lamp that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or give up. Her hands cradled her belly. The baby hadn't moved much that day. She told herself it was normal, that babies had quiet days too. But the cramps hadn't stopped, and fear twisted like a knife inside her. Just then a soft knock tapped on her door. She hesitated. Her heart jumped. It was almost midnight. Who is it? She asked, her voice low. It's me. Fola replied from the other side. You awake? Celeste opened the door. Fola stood there holding a thin white envelope. This came for you, he said. Addressed to Miss Celeste Vaughn, room 3, Mama D's lodge. Weird, right? Celeste's eyes widened. No one knew she was here. Except Mama D. And maybe her parents? She took the letter with shaking fingers. Thank you. Fola leaned against the wall. You okay? She nodded. I don't know. You want me to stay while you read it? Celeste looked at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Fola stepped inside, sitting quietly in the corner. She sat on the bed, ripped open the envelope, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It was her mother's handwriting. Celeste, your father doesn't know I'm writing you. I had to ask an old neighbor if they'd seen you. When they mentioned a girl who looked like you working at a lodge, I didn't want to believe it. But here I am, writing to you in secret like I'm the one who's done something wrong. I miss you. I hate how things ended. I was angry, scared, not just for you but for what people would say about our family. Maybe that's my sin, caring more about reputation than you. I don't know where this path will take you, but I want you to survive it. I want you to live even if it's not with us. And I pray every night that one day you'll forgive me. Love, Mom. Tears rolled down Celeste's cheeks as she finished reading. She folded the letter and held it close to her chest. She wrote to me, she whispered. Fola said nothing, just gave her a small nod of understanding. She doesn't even know if I'll write back. But she still wrote. That's what love looks like when it's ashamed, Fola said. It hides, but it's still there. They sat in silence for a moment, the night pressing in around them. Finally Celeste asked, Did your family throw you out too? Fola gave a small smile. No, mine left on their own. I was 12. One morning they were there. The next just silence. Celeste's heart clenched. I'm sorry. He shrugged. I got used to silence. That's why I know what it looks like when someone finally breaks it. He stood. You should sleep. Big day tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? She asked. You're going to the free clinic. I spoke to someone. They'll see you. No charge. Her mouth fell open. You did that for me? Fola just smiled and walked out, leaving her staring at the door. The letter from her mother sat on her lap. Hope in one hand, fear in the other. But now, something else bloomed quietly inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. The morning air was sharp and unforgiving as Celeste stepped out of Mama D's compound. Her sweater was too thin for the wind, and her sandals flapped against the dusty sidewalk, but for the first time in days she was walking with purpose. Fola walked beside her, a backpack slung casually over one shoulder. Neither of them spoke much. The city was waking up around them. Horns blaring, sellers shouting, buses screeching to a halt, but Celeste felt like she was moving through it all behind a glass wall. When they turned onto Maple Street, she saw the clinic. It was small, tucked between a block of crumbling apartments and a mechanic's shop. The paint on the sign had faded, but the words still read clearly. Maple Street Women's Health Center. Her legs suddenly felt heavy. I don't know if I can do this, she murmured. Fola looked at her gently. You already are. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and baby powder. A few women sat quietly on metal chairs, some with children, some alone, all looking tired. The receptionist behind the desk didn't even look up as they walked in. Fola approached the counter. She has an appointment with Nurse Tenny. We were told to come. The receptionist, still chewing her gum lazily, glanced at her list and waved them toward a corridor. Celeste's heart pounded louder with every step. The clinic's hallway was lined with peeling posters about breastfeeding, prenatal vitamins, and danger signs during pregnancy. Some of the posters were torn. Some were stained. All of them felt like they belonged to a world Celeste had been kicked out of. At the end of the hall, A woman in a navy blue uniform waited. She had tired eyes but a warm smile. "You must be Celeste," she said softly. Celeste nodded. "I'm Nurse Tenny. Come in, let's check you and the little one." Fola waited outside as the door closed behind her. The room was small but clean. A hospital bed, a table with papers, and an old ultrasound machine stood in the corner. Nurse Tenny helped her onto the bed. "Lift your top for me," she said gently. "Let's see how baby is doing." Cold gel touched her belly, and the machine crackled to life. Celeste held her breath. Then a sound. Fast, rhythmic, alive. Thump, 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 thump. Tears spilled from her eyes as she heard her baby's heartbeat for the first time. "Your baby is strong," Nurse Tenny said with a smile. "You're tired, but the baby is fighting. Just like you." Celeste couldn't speak. She didn't need to. The sound said everything. She wasn't alone. There was life inside her, real life. Hope beating like a drum beneath her ribs. Nurse Tenny cleaned the gel and helped her sit up. "I'll get you some supplements. You'll need them. And next week we'll check again." Celeste nodded, wiping her tears. When she stepped out, Fola stood immediately. "Well?" he asked. She nodded, a shaky smile on her face. "She's okay," she whispered. "The baby's okay." They walked back through the noisy city, past loud markets and smoky food stalls. But this time Celeste wasn't drowning in it. This time the noise felt like life, like something she could survive, and maybe, just maybe, even win. By the time Celeste and Fola returned from the clinic, the sun had slipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The gates to Mama D's lodge stood wide open, and music boomed from inside like a house party had taken over the compound. Celeste winced at the noise, her head still spinning from everything at the clinic. But beneath the exhaustion, a new strength had begun to settle in her bones. She had heard her baby's heartbeat. Nothing could take that away. They stepped through the gates just as Mama D's heavy voice thundered through the corridor. "Fola! Celeste! Come here!" The entire compound paused. Fola glanced at Celeste. "Let me do the talking." They found Mama D on the ground floor, seated on a wide plastic chair like a queen watching her court. Her hair was wrapped in a bright scarf. A toothpick danced between her lips. Her thick arms were folded tightly across her chest. Around her stood two of her older tenants, slim, street-smart women who didn't hide their irritation as they eyed Celeste from head to toe. "You left without permission," Mama D said coldly. "I'm sorry," Celeste said, stepping forward. "It was important." "I'm not talking to you," Mama D snapped. "I'm talking to the boy who knows the rules." Fola's jaw tightened. "I took her to the clinic. I know someone there. She needed help." Mama D slowly stood. The music from one of the rooms stopped suddenly, as if even the speakers were afraid. "You think this is a charity?" she asked. "You think this is a school dormitory where people come and go as they like?" "No, Ma," Fola said quietly. "You forget, boy. You owe me. And you?" She turned her glare on Celeste. "You're still on trial. 1 week late on your rent, and I throw you out like yesterday's water." Celeste swallowed hard, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. "But I'll give you one chance," Mama D continued. "You want to stay here? You work for it." Celeste blinked. "Work? Clean? Cook? Fetch water? Whatever I say, until you earn your keep. You're not special just because you're carrying something." Fola stepped forward. "She can't lift heavy things." "I didn't ask you," Mama D snapped. "She speaks for herself." Celeste hesitated. Every part of her body was tired. Her back ached. Her feet hurt. Her heart still carried scars from her parents' rejection. But she had no choice. "I'll work," she said. Mama D narrowed her eyes. "Good. Start tomorrow. 5 a.m. Without another word, the woman turned and walked away, her slippers smacking the floor like thunder. Fola cursed under his breath. I hate this place. Celeste looked up at him. Don't. You brought me to that clinic. That means more than anything. They climbed the stairs in silence. Each step felt heavier than the last. When Celeste reached her room, she opened the envelope from her mother again and read the words slowly, letting them wrap around her heart. I want you to survive this. She sat on the bed, her palms flat against her belly. I will, she whispered. No matter what. Outside the city roared on. Inside Celeste whispered a promise. Not to her mother, not to Fola, not even to Mama D, but to herself. The knock came at exactly 4:55 a.m. 3 loud bangs on the wooden door. Celeste jolted upright from sleep, heart racing. For a moment she forgot where she was, then reality returned. Mama D's lodge, room 3, cracked walls and a growing baby inside her. She groaned as she sat up. Her back ached, and the floor was cold under her feet. Her breath misted slightly in the dim morning air. Celeste. It was Mama D's voice. Out. Now. She pulled on her old hoodie and slid into her sandals, then stepped into the corridor, where 2 other girls were already carrying buckets downstairs. She joined them wordlessly. Down in the yard, Mama D stood with arms folded. A wide basin and a broom waited beside her like weapons. You'll start by scrubbing the compound, she said. After that, kitchen work. Then you'll sweep all the corridors. Celeste's throat tightened. Okay. I don't want okay. I want silence and speed. And with that, Mama D turned away, lighting a cigarette as she vanished into her office. Celeste bent down and picked up the basin. The cold bit into her hands. She filled it at the tap in the corner of the yard. As she poured the water across the cement, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection. Her face looked older than 22. Eyes tired. Jaw set. Belly showing beneath her hoodie now. She scrubbed one corner of the compound, then the next. The water soaked into her trousers and left her legs numb. When she finished, it was just after 6. The sun had barely touched the horizon. Mama D emerged again. You'll help in the kitchen now, she ordered. Inside the kitchen, 2 pots already steamed on the stove. One of the older tenants, Uju, looked Celeste over with barely disguised irritation. Cut vegetables, Uju snapped, handing her a dull knife and a basket of onions and peppers. Celeste obeyed. As she sliced, the strong onion smell filled her nose, bringing tears that had nothing to do with the sting. Her belly tightened again. A low cramp. She paused for breath. You tired already? Uju mocked. No, Celeste said, forcing a smile. But inside she was breaking. By the time she finished in the kitchen and cleaned the corridors, her body was trembling. She leaned against the stair railing, breath shallow. A familiar voice called out. Celeste. It was Fola. He stood at the gate holding a nylon bag. She walked over slowly. He passed the bag through the gate. Bread. Egg roll. And orange juice. You need strength. She opened it, and the smell of food nearly broke her. You didn't have to, she whispered. I wanted to, he said. How's the baby? Still fighting. Just like the mama. She smiled faintly. From inside the lodge, Mama D barked again. Celeste. Fola stepped back. Eat when you can. I'll come by later. As he left, Celeste looked at the bag in her hand. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. She sat beside the small mango tree in the yard, peeled open the bread, and took a slow, grateful bite. And as she chewed, she whispered to herself, You're still standing. That means you haven't lost. But deep inside her, she wondered, how long can I keep going like this? The day dragged on. After breakfast and a short rest, Celeste returned to her room. She lay on the mattress without sheets, her arms wrapped around her belly, too tired to move, too overwhelmed to sleep. She had just begun to drift off when she heard a knock. Not a loud one like Mama D's. A soft, hesitant knock. "Who is it?" she called, her voice dry. "It's Ada from room 7. Celeste sat up slowly. She didn't know much about the girl from room 7, only that she kept to herself, wore oversized sunglasses even indoors, and always seemed to be rushing in and out like a shadow. "Come in." The door creaked open and Ada stepped inside, carrying a small metal flask. "I made ginger tea," she said, offering it forward. "Helps with cramps. And the cold." Celeste hesitated, then accepted it with both hands. "Thank you." Ada nodded and sat down quietly on the floor, folding her legs. Her dark eyes scanned the room but didn't judge. "I heard Mama D gave you a full shift this morning." Celeste sipped the tea. Warm, spicy, comforting. She nodded. 5 a.m. She didn't even let me rest. Ada sighed. "She does that. Especially to girls like us." Celeste looked at her. "Like us?" Ada's voice was low. "Girls who came here with nothing. Girls running from something." There was silence. Then Celeste asked softly, "What were you running from?" Ada smiled sadly. "A man I thought loved me. He promised me heaven. Left me in a room with nothing but a scar and a pregnancy. I lost the baby. But I didn't lose myself." Celeste felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Ada shrugged. "I've been sorry enough for both of us. You don't have to be." She looked at Celeste's belly. "How far along are you?" "Almost 5 months." Ada nodded again. "You'll feel stronger soon. But it gets harder too. People will look at you different. Talk behind your back. Even people like Mama D who have done worse." Celeste blinked. "You think she has a story too?" "Everyone here has a story," Ada said. "Even Mama D. Maybe especially her." They sat in silence, the tea warming Celeste's hands, the moment soft and still. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Celeste asked. Ada chuckled. "Every single day. But it's funny. Sometimes the worst places give birth to the best strength." Celeste smiled faintly. "You sound like someone who's survived a war." "I have," Ada replied. "And now so are you." As she stood to leave, she said something that echoed in Celeste's ears long after the door shut behind her. "Don't let Mama D break your spirit. That's what she feeds on. Weakness." When Celeste finally lay down again, she felt lighter. She wasn't as alone as she thought. There were other warriors in this place. Quiet ones. Scarred ones. But fighters all the same. And maybe, just maybe, she was one too. The next morning, Celeste woke up later than usual, the sun already spilling through the cracked window. For the first time in days, Mama D didn't bang on her door. No threats. No chores. Strange. She sat up slowly, wary of the silence. When she opened her door, she saw a piece of paper on the ground. A short note, scribbled in red marker. "Go and sell these before noon. Come back with the money. Mama D." Beside the paper was a nylon bag stuffed with 10 pairs of second-hand sandals. Faded leather, plastic buckles, a few still coated in dust. Market rejects. Celeste frowned. "Sell?" She picked up the bag and walked downstairs. Ada was waiting near the gate, leaning against the wall with a biscuit in her hand. "Mama D's sending you out, huh?" Ada said. Celeste nodded. "To sell sandals." "Where?" "No idea." Ada sighed and broke her biscuit in two. "Here, take half. You need energy." Celeste took it gratefully. "Thanks. You're always helping." Ada gave her a tired smile. "It's the only way we survive here." With the bag in hand and her stomach lightly full, Celeste set off into the city. The streets were alive with noise. Market women shouted over each other. Bus drivers cursed in loud Yoruba. And children darted across the road with rubber slippers slapping the ground. She found a corner near the eco-market bridge. A dusty spot where other hawkers had laid out their goods. A woman selling roasted corn scowled at her, but didn't chase her away. Celeste spread out the sandals on an old nylon sheet she found in a gutter. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. For the first hour no one stopped. Some glanced. Others didn't even bother. Her voice was shaky at first, then firmer. Fine sandals. Good quality. Only 1,500 naira. Last price. Sweat poured down her back. She adjusted her hoodie over her belly, trying not to draw attention. But it was no use. A group of teenage girls passed by, whispering and laughing. See belly, and she's selling sandals. E be like her boyfriend dump am. She no shame. Celeste's ears burned. She turned away, pretending she didn't hear. Then, just as she was about to give up, a woman in a green wrapper stopped. How much for this one? The woman asked, picking up a black strap sandal. 1,500, Celeste said quickly. But for you, 1,200. The woman smiled. You get mouth sha. Bring it. I go try am. Within 20 minutes, Celeste had sold 3 pairs. Not much, but something. She took the money and clutched it tightly. Mama D said come back with the money. Not how much. As she packed up the remaining sandals, she noticed a young boy nearby watching her. Barefoot. Skinny. About 8 or 9. She hesitated, then pulled out the smallest pair of rubber slippers and tossed it to him. The boy's eyes lit up. He slipped them on, gave her a silent nod, and ran off down the alley. Celeste smiled to herself. It was one small act, one small choice. But for the first time since she was kicked out of her parents' house, she felt like she had control of something. As she walked back toward the compound, she tightened her grip on the money, prepared for whatever Mama D might say. No matter what happened, she had made someone smile today, and that felt like power. The rain came suddenly, as it often did in the city. One minute the sun blazed through the sky, and the next thick clouds rolled in, blocking the light, followed by a fierce downpour. Celeste barely made it inside the lodge before it started to pour. She shook the water from her jacket as she entered the compound, her sandals squelching against the wet ground. The soft hum of the street vendors outside was replaced by the heavier sound of raindrops pounding the rooftops. Inside the lodge, Mama D was nowhere to be found. The other tenants had huddled in their rooms, avoiding the chill of the storm. It was oddly quiet, except for the occasional murmur from the girls in room 5, who were gossiping in the hallway. Celeste stood in the kitchen, staring at the half-empty shelves. Her stomach growled. It had been hours since she last ate, and Mama D hadn't sent her to work today. For a brief moment she allowed herself to rest. She sat on the old couch in the common room, her feet tired and sore, wondering what her next move should be. And then the doorbell rang. Celeste looked up, startled. It was an unusual sound. Hardly anyone ever visited the lodge, especially not during the rainy season. The bell rang again. Curious, she stood up, wiped her hands on her pants and walked toward the door. As she pulled it open, she found a tall man standing there, drenched but still holding a briefcase. I'm looking for Celeste Vaughn, the man said, his voice deep with a slight foreign accent. Celeste blinked. That's me. Can I help you? The man smiled slightly. I'm Jonathan Clark, an old friend of your mother's. May I come in? Celeste hesitated. She didn't know anyone named Jonathan Clark, and she certainly didn't know anyone who would claim to be a friend of her mother. But there was something in his demeanor that made her instinctively step aside and allow him in. Please come in, she said, her voice cautious. He stepped into the lobby, shaking off the rainwater from his jacket, revealing a crisp, light blue shirt and well-fitted pants. His shoes were expensive, and there was a sense of confidence in the way he carried himself. He was clearly a man of some status. Celeste led him to the common room and gestured for him to sit. Can I get you something to drink? No need, Jonathan said, sitting down. I'm not here for a drink, though I appreciate the offer. Celeste's curiosity piqued. You said you're an old friend of my mother's? Yes, Jonathan said with a nod. I haven't seen Eleanor in many years, but I've been following your family's situation. I know things haven't been easy for you, especially recently. Celeste's heart skipped. What do you mean? Jonathan's face softened, his gaze shifting slightly. Your mother reached out to me about you, Celeste. She told me what's been happening. About your situation here. Celeste's chest tightened. Her mother had reached out? Why hadn't she told her? I'm just here to offer a bit of help, Jonathan continued. You've been through a lot, and from what I understand, things aren't going to get any easier if you stay in this place. But I have resources. Opportunities. Celeste's mind raced. What kind of opportunities? He leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. I know someone who can provide housing for you, a place with stability, and I also have connections that could help you finish your education. Get the life you've always wanted. No more struggling. No more Mama D's. Celeste stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. Felt like a dream. Could this really be happening? Her mind flashed back to the day she had left her parents' house, to the painful words her mother had said, to the cold rejection. She had expected nothing more than survival. And now a stranger was offering her a way out. Why me? She asked quietly, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Jonathan smiled gently, his eyes softening. Because I know what you're capable of. And because I can see past the mistakes. We all have them. But that doesn't mean we have to let them define us. Celeste bit her lip, overwhelmed by the weight of the decision that seemed to hang in the air. Take your time, Jonathan said, noticing her hesitation. But understand this is a real chance. You can build a future for yourself and your child. A future far from this place. Before she could respond, the door creaked open and Mama D stepped inside. She was holding a wet umbrella, her face etched with annoyance as she glanced at the stranger sitting in the room. Who is this? Mama D demanded, her voice sharp. Jonathan stood and turned to her, extending a hand. I'm Jonathan Clark. I was just speaking with Celeste about some opportunities she may be interested in. Mama D eyed him with suspicion, then shot Celeste a sharp look. Opportunities, huh? You better be careful who you take help from, girl. Jonathan's smile remained unwavering. I assure you, Mama D, I'm only here to help. Mama D snorted, clearly unimpressed. You'd better watch out. Some people here think they can just walk in and pull strings. You don't want to mess with things that are already out of your control. Celeste's pulse raced. The tension in the room thickened. But Jonathan wasn't deterred. Thank you for your advice, Mama D. I'll make sure Celeste has all the information she needs. With a polite nod, he turned back to Celeste. Think about what I've said. I'll be waiting for your answer. As he left, Celeste stood frozen, her heart in turmoil. Mama D slammed the umbrella against the wall. What was that about? I don't know yet, Celeste said quietly. But something tells me this is my chance. Mama D's eyes narrowed. Don't get ahead of yourself, girl. You're not out of this place just yet. Celeste bit her lip, wondering just how much longer she would stay under Mama D's thumb. The rain had stopped by the time Jonathan left. But the storm inside Celeste didn't settle. She sat on the edge of her bed, the same bed that had held her for weeks. Her fingers were clenched around the crumpled note that Jonathan had given her. A business card, simple yet elegant. The name Jonathan Clark stood out in bold letters, with an address underneath. Her thoughts were clouded with doubt, but the words echoed in her mind. You can build a future for yourself and your child. But she could still feel Mama D's eyes on her, still hear the warning in her voice. The woman who had thrown her out into the streets now watched over her with a coldness that seemed to extend through every corner of the compound. Celeste stood up slowly, her body heavy with exhaustion. She walked to the small window of her room and looked out, watching the last drops of rain trickle down the glass. The city seemed quieter now, almost peaceful, as though everything had paused for a breath. In the distance, the hustle of the market resumed. People went about their lives, buying, selling, living. Celeste's life felt like it had been paused too. A sudden knock at the door broke her reverie. Her heart skipped. She knew that knock all too well. "Celeste!" Mama D's voice called through the wood. "Open up!" Celeste opened the door slowly, meeting Mama D's stern gaze. "What now?" she asked, trying to keep the uncertainty out of her voice. Mama D barged in without waiting for a response, her wet umbrella dripping water onto the floor. "I want you to listen to me very carefully, girl. You think this is all some kind of fairy tale? You think that man who came here, Jonathan, is going to save you?" Celeste remained silent, her stomach tightening. Mama D took a step closer. "There are no saviors in this world. You get nowhere without hard work, without making the right deals. If you think you're going to leave me, leave this place, and just walk into some dream life, you're wrong. You'll end up on the streets with your baby." Celeste swallowed hard. Her eyes burned with frustration, but she said nothing. Mama D stepped back, eyeing Celeste with contempt. "You're nothing but a young girl who thinks she can take shortcuts. You can't. You won't. So if you think you've got some big plan with him, forget it." With that, Mama D turned and stormed out of the room, leaving Celeste standing there with her own doubts swirling like a storm inside her chest. For the next few hours, Celeste couldn't focus on anything. Her mind raced between Jonathan's offer and Mama D's words. The decision felt too big, too far out of her reach. Felt impossible. But then something inside her snapped. She wasn't going to let fear control her. She wasn't going to let anyone, not even Mama D, define her future. With a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks, Celeste grabbed the business card from Jonathan. She didn't have time to second-guess herself. She needed to take a step, to make a choice. She needed to take control. Celeste packed a small bag. Nothing more than the bare essentials. The card, her ID, and a few clothes. Her stomach still fluttered with nervous energy. But there was no going back now. She knew what she had to do. As she stood in front of the door, she hesitated for a moment. It was a small hesitation, but it felt as though she was saying goodbye to something, goodbye to the person she had been. She left the room, careful not to make any noise. The hallways were silent. It felt like no one was there, as though everyone had vanished. When she reached the front door, she looked around, half expecting Mama D to appear out of nowhere. But there was no one in sight. The street outside was still and empty, the only sound the soft echo of distant footsteps. With one last glance at the building, Celeste stepped into the night. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet beneath her feet as she made her way toward the main road. The streets were quieter now, the vendors gone, the night air cool against her skin. Her heart beat loudly in her chest as she walked, each step feeling like a defiant answer to the life she'd lived up until now. It wasn't easy. She had nothing but hope and fear as her companions. But as she passed the familiar landmarks of the city, streets she had walked hundreds of times, she realized she had made a choice. And no matter how hard or uncertain the road ahead might be, that was enough for her. The address on Jonathan's card wasn't far. It was in a more developed part of the city, Where the buildings were taller, the streets wider, and the people seemed to be on a different kind of mission than the ones Celeste had seen in her neighborhood. After what felt like forever, she arrived at the building. A glass-fronted office, sleek and modern, standing in contrast to everything she knew.